Folks, it's broken. OU fans, broken. Finally, it's broken. And now maybe they can rebuild this thing into what it needs to be. It can't get worse. I mean, you would hope it cannot get worse than 49-0 in the Red River rivalry game against your most hated rival, the Texas Longhorns, who have basically been trash for 12 years. They look like they're back. Oklahoma looks like it's broken. Welcome back to the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Watkins, and if you love college football, you are definitely in the right place. So before you forget, smash that red subscriber button, like our videos, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so that you don't miss one moment of the Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. Folks, this week we are going to recap Week 6 of the college football season, starting off with a tough Red River shootout game for the Oklahoma Sooners, who I think we now have to say are officially, as my friend Corey said, broken. This may be a great thing, but it's a tough pill to swallow if you're an Oklahoma fan. They lost 49-0 to the arch rival Texas Longhorns, snapping a 4-game winning streak in the series. Also, listen, it's going to be a lot to talk about. And I know you heard a bunch of stuff this last week from other Big 12 teams saying, how it didn't matter, the game didn't blah, 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 blah. You know what, guys? It matters, okay? It may not matter to you. It mattered to everybody else. It mattered even to the fact that, it was a tough thing for any Oklahoma fan to watch. But don't kid yourself. Everybody watched that more than they watched even the better teams that, vying for the championship. And what I would tell you, even as an Oklahoma fan, and I hate to say it, if you think Texas is out of this thing, they're not. This is with Quinn Ewers in the lineup, plus Bijan doing what he's doing. They've got a plethora of running backs. They run downhill, and they've got a real deal quarterback in right now. If you think you're out of the woods with Texas, you're not. So look forward to seeing kind of how the rest of the season plays out. There's still some hope, but honestly, what happened for Oklahoma this week may have been a great thing as long as now that they've hit the bottom, there's only one way to go but up. We'll also be talking today about, to get out of the Big 12 just for a second, Eddie Robinson Jr., son of the late and legendary Grambling coach Eddie Robinson, coach of I believe, Alabama State. He and Jackson State head coach Deion Sanders, a bit of an altercation at midfield after the Jackson State win on Saturday. Then later on in the press conferences, fireworks coming from both sides on that. We'll bring you all that and kind of break down kind of what that was about. Crazy deal. Eddie Robinson said that he was not of the SWAC, and that really ticked off old Prime. Coach Prime was pretty upset. So we'll bring you all that as well. Also, we will talk. Well, Texas Tech dropped to 1-2 on the Big 12 season after their second straight loss following that win over Texas in Week 1 of the Big 12 2 weeks ago, losing by 10 on the road after jumping out to a decent lead over Oklahoma State in Stillwater. Spencer Sanders and the Cowboys came back and pulled away towards the end of the game. They are now 2-0 in the Big 12 and seem to be feeling pretty good about themselves. We'll see what way they find to screw this all up, like they always do. Also, to troll a little more, what's up with the Aggie? Texas A&M appearing to, coaches, former players like wanting to celebrate moral victories of not getting blown out in Tuscaloosa by Alabama, which is a team that you beat a year ago, following picking up the greatest recruiting class in the history of recruiting classes, and we're talking about moral victories. What the hell's the matter with you guys? Seems like Jimbo loses control of this thing just a bit more every week, doesn't it? We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But, hey, stick with this Hall of Fame College Football Podcast. We'll be right back. Hey, if you want to help support the program, easy way to do it and a great way to do it for you as well, because we have teamed up with the number one team merchandise retailer in the world, Fanatics. That's right, Fanatics. So now every time you shop for your favorite team's gear, you can help out our podcast, our show, continue to bring you great content each week. All you got to do, just go to our website first, hofmedia.us/fanatics. That's hofmedia.us/fanatics. Go to the bottom of the page, click the blue Fanatics logo, go shop as normal. We're going to get a small commission for anything you buy through our link, but you also get amazing discounts just for using our link as well. It's a win-win situation. It helps our podcast so much to be able to monetize in that way. Listen, guys, and on top of that, you're going to get a great deal. I know you're shopping for this stuff anyway, and it doesn't matter if you want NFL gear, college football gear, basketball, baseball, whatever your favorite sport is. If you love the English Premier League, go and get your favorite team's gear at great prices, up to 65% off the entire store right now when you go to hofmedia.us/fanatics. That's hofmedia.us/fanatics. Again, click that blue logo at the bottom of the page and shop as normal. We'll get a small commission. You get a great deal. Win-win. Also, the Otis Taylor Spread Shop, way past due for the Hall of Fame. This is another store of ours that is simply, this is not for a profit situation for us whatsoever. This is not all this, every bit of the proceeds for anything in the store. It's sweater season. We've got Otis Taylor for Hall of Fame stuff for you, the way past due stuff. Go on, check it out. We've got some amazing designs that we did ourselves. We've got great designs from the Weird Wolf in Kansas City, one of the biggest Otis Taylor fans there is. Also, listen, whether you're from Houston, Kansas City, whatever, it is time for us to get Otis into the Hall of Fame. He is so way past due. 43 years way past due, folks. And it's time for us to get him in. That's what this store is about. Every dollar will go to promotion of Otis Taylor for the Hall of Fame. So jump on there. The link is in the description. Go on there, grab a hat, grab a sweater, grab a t-shirt, whatever you want. We've got tank tops, anything that you can think of, and you can even customize your own stuff in our store. Again, the Way Past Due Spread Shop store. Check the link in our description right there, and you could go there as well. Again, every dollar goes to promotion of Otis Taylor for the Hall of Fame. Thanks a lot. Guys, we are going to jump in right now to this next, to the first part of our show. OU broken. Let's go. You would hope it cannot get worse than 49-0 in the Red River rivalry game against your most hated rival, the Texas Longhorns, who have basically been trash for 12 years. They look like they're back. Oklahoma looks like it's broken. Brent Venables looks defeated. The defense isn't stopping anything. And Oklahoma has its first 3-game losing streak since 1998. Has given up almost 1,800 yards in 3 weeks, 146 points. First time they have been shut out in a game in 311 games. Or weeks. Games. Weeks. Something. It's bad. And here's what I'm going to tell you. It's about time that Oklahoma fans, we face the truth about the root of the problem that has really been coming for a long time. And I think that my buddy on Twitter and the founder of the Big 12 Country podcast for Oklahoma, Corey, he said it really well on Saturday night. And essentially what he said was, I'm trying to share what I learned watching everyone else suck at some point but us. Talking about OU, except for OU. I know this if I know nothing else in football. When you need to get rid of the bad, you need to break. He goes on to later say in the same thread, they needed to hit rock bottom. Now they can get better. And I don't think that there was a smarter thing said the entire night by anybody there. Now, what I'm going to tell you is this. I had been saying something similar to Bryce earlier that day, that there was, we were talking about how broken they were and that this is just not what it's supposed to look like. Of course, Bryce is giving me shit about it because he loves it. But the truth is that Corey's observation kind of grounded me and made me remember back to what I had originally thought, because, it got really easy to kind of get caught up in the hoopla that was surrounding Brent Venables. He was recruiting so well. They salvaged a top 10 recruiting class in a month after he gets the job coming in this past season after Lincoln bolts like he did. Okay. And so it's easy to buy into it. But I got to tell you, here's the deal. This thing broke not because Lincoln split. I mean, it's got part to do with it, but it's not because of Lincoln. It isn't. What this is really about is the fact that we continue as fans, so many people are going back and just remembering the parts that you want to remember about Bob Stoops and how great he was. And I got to tell you, folks, the culture change that's needed to really change around Oklahoma, it's not been away from the culture of Lincoln Riley. Lincoln Riley's culture never took hold here. It didn't. It wasn't even allowed to. It wasn't even allowed to. The truth of it is, the culture change has needed to change from the Bob Stoops cultures. Because flat out, this was an issue that had been rearing its ugly head for a long time. The truth of it is what I remembered back from right the day that Lincoln decided to leave, right after the Bedlam game, the loss to Oklahoma State. The next morning you find out he takes the job at USC, leaves under the cloak of darkness, which, by the way, was shady as hell. And while I'm not going to sit here and blame it all on him, in fact, I want to put most of this blame on where it belongs, and that's on Bob Stoops and Joel Castiglione. And I have respect for both of these guys, by the way, okay? Much respect for both of them. But you need to understand that in order for us to actually be able to build back what Oklahoma was, you have to be honest with yourself. And that includes the fans being honest with themselves and not just giving these guys a pass on what they weren't. Because then you're going to allow them to build it back the exact same way that they have been, that has not worked. Okay? If you just act like nothing was ever wrong in Soonerland, as long as Bob Stoops was the head coach, you're not even being helpful. I understand supporting the program. I get it. I support the program. I love Oklahoma. But listen, let me be clear about this. Right? I am not saying that Lincoln's sudden departure didn't have something to do with this 3-game losing streak, the fact that they are broken, us seeing that now. He did. He took a lot of guys with him. And look, and nor am I going to sit here and excuse the way that he left as shady as hell like he did. Snake in the grass ways, leaving under the cloak of darkness, not speaking to his team, taking the best players he could with him, including Caleb Williams, who probably is going to win the Heisman and should either way. definitely to me, I think he's the best quarterback in the country. Listen, he did some shady shit. The transfer portal, all this other crap, and now we need to put some, guardrails on it. Yeah. Whatever. I don't say you have to like the guy. What I want you to do is stop being dishonest with yourself about what was really going on. Okay? You have to do that, because if you ask me, the person that's most responsible is going to be, it's not Dylan Gabriel for missing some passes in the K-State game. Or getting hurt in the TCU game and not being able to play Texas. It's not Levy's game planning, although the offensive game plan for the Red River game, I don't know what that was. I'll give you that one. You want to bitch at him about that? Fine. It isn't Gabriel's injury that kept him out of these games. It isn't even the disgusting crap defense that we've been watching for so long now that really it's part of it. All of these things are part of it. But the real problem is and has been for a very long time, this culture that has been perpetuated. And what I'm going to tell you is what I remember back to was thinking, man, we've had it so good with Lincoln, first as offensive coordinator and then as head coach. He went as offensive coordinator to as offensive coordinator and then head coach, 6 straight Big 12 championships, 4 college football playoff entrances. They didn't win any of those games. They should have won at least one of them. But that's still, and doing this with shit defenses that he was continually saddled with by who else? Stoops, who had stepped down after his second year as offensive coordinator because they knew at Oklahoma they were about to lose this guy. They knew they couldn't afford it. And let me tell you why they knew they couldn't afford it. Because when Big Game Bob was Big Game Bob was early in his career. He won his national title second year out of the block. Goes 13-0, beats Florida State in the Orange Bowl, gets the first of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight wins over Texas, many of them in blowout fashion. Wins the Rose Bowl, wins the Cotton Bowl, wins the Orange Bowl national title. Big time winning games a lot. 2004 beats Texas again, loses in the Orange Bowl, but wins the Big 12 championship 42-3. But from 2003 on, Big Game Bob was not Big Game Bob anymore. In fact, by the time we get to about 2009, the only time people are saying Big Game Bob about Bob Stoops anymore, they're snickering about it, or it's a punchline for them losing games that they should win. Such as, I don't know about should win necessarily, but let's just go to 2003. They beat Texas 65-13, but then they turn around and lose to a Kansas State team that they had beaten handily earlier in the season. When they start off 12-0, they lose in the Big 12 championship, still get to go to the Sugar Bowl with a chance to win the national title. They lose to Nick Saban and LSU 21-14. That's a big game loss. 2 of them in a row, as a matter of fact. The next year, 2004, they beat Texas 12-0. They win the Big 12 championship 42-3, and then they get boat raced in the Orange Bowl 55-19 by USC. The year after that, Texas wins the national championship, Vince Young's big season. Oklahoma goes 8-4. They win the Holiday Bowl over Oregon, whoop-de-woo, they win 8-4. That's 2005 to 2009. Oklahoma lost 4 of 5 against Texas. They lost back-to-back Fiesta Bowls to Boise State, West Virginia, the BCS National Championship game the year after that. In 2008, along with the loss to Texas, 45-35, they lose to Florida in the BCS Championship game. 2009, they go 8-5 again. This is talking from 2003 to 2009. They lose all but 1 bowl game, 2 bowl games. And the 2 bowl games they won were both 8-5, 8-4, and 8-5 seasons. They win the Holiday Bowl over Oregon, and they beat Stanford in the Sun Bowl in 2009 after they had went in an 8-5 year. There were some problems. Okay. Now, 2010, they flip it. They win over Texas. They go 12-2, win the Fiesta Bowl over UConn. 2011, 10-3, they beat Texas again, but they lose to Oklahoma State in the Bedlam game, giving Oklahoma State its only Big 12 championship. They didn't have to win a championship game, but they won the Big 12 championship under the only one under Mike Gundy. They win the Insight Bowl that season. The next year, they beat Texas again, but get boat raced in the Cotton Bowl by Texas A&M, who just went to the SEC. 2013, they lose to Texas, win the Sugar Bowl over a Bama team that everybody expected to beat them, and Trevor Knight had probably the game of his life. But in comes Lincoln from that the year after that. What I'm trying to get at here is that after those initial years where, he's killing Texas, he's winning big games, he wins a national title, plays for 2 more. But after 2003, when they lost that national championship game in the Sugar Bowl to LSU, then they turn around and lose another one the year after that to USC. They win the Holiday Bowl, lose 2 Fiesta Bowls back-to-back. They lose the BCS championship game after that one. These games, he's no longer big name Bob anymore. And all of these things that are happening, a lot of it has to do with the defense. Their offense is explosive. It stays that way. But defense, which is what he was supposed to be all about, is falling by the wayside. 2012 comes along. He hires his brother Mike back, who got just fired from Arizona, decides he's going to take him back, put him on the staff. He loses Venables because of it. He goes to Clemson. They win 2 national championships and play for another one or another 2 while he's there, because his defenses are insane. Their offenses aren't any better than what you have at Oklahoma with Lincoln, but their defenses were insane. Now, once he steps down after the 2015 season, 2016 Lincoln becomes head coach. They go to the Rose Bowl with Baker. That's Baker's senior season, Baker Mayfield. They should blow out Georgia. They are stepping on their neck in the first half. And because of that defense and the fact that Lincoln took his foot off the gas, they end up losing this game in overtime. It was ridiculous. They should have been able to fire Mike Stoops right then. They didn't. Whatever was going on, this influence that Bob Stoops had, I think that there must have been some kind of, and in fact, I know that has to have been what happened. There was a sweetheart deal. I don't think he was ready to leave, but he did it for the good of the program. You didn't want to lose. You didn't want to lose Lincoln Riley to anybody else, and he was about to get a head coaching job and deserved one. They didn't want to lose him, so he steps down, but under the agreement that you're going to keep little brother around to run the defense. Mind you, the defense was shit. It's shit again the next year. They lose the Rose Bowl partly because of it, partly because of Lincoln taking his foot off the gas. It's his first year as a head coach. He's in the, whatever. It's partly his fault. Very much so. The year after that, Baker Mayfield goes on to win the Heisman, drafted number 1 overall. It's his 3rd straight top 5 in the Heisman under the tutelage of Lincoln Riley. Kyler Murray becomes quarterback the year after that. 2017. They lose an early game to Kansas State because they can't stop anybody. They average about 50 a game because they have to. Every game for the entire season that year, I remember it like it was yesterday, was a freaking marathon game, and they literally had to score 50 to win. Finally, late in the season, they allow Lincoln to get rid of Mike Stoops, as defensive coordinator. Ruffin McNeil takes over. It doesn't get a lot better, but it does get a little better. They again make the CFP. They get kind of blown out in the first half against Alabama in that one. make a game of it a little bit in the second half, they lose. The year after that, now Kyler Murray, Heisman Trophy, number 1 overall draft pick. Year after that, transfer from Alabama, Jalen Hurts comes in. They do lose a game to, I think it was Kansas State again. Lose to Kansas State again early in the season. Go on to run the table, get into the thing again, and lose to LSU en route to their national championship. Joe Burrow's team, they're disgusting team. So again, the teams that they lost to were insane good. They should have won the Georgia game. But the truth of it is, what I was getting at is all these things that happened, Lincoln was so good at what he was doing that it didn't even matter that their defense couldn't stop a runny damn nose. But what that also did was it perpetuated what they were terrible at. It was a facade that continued to, you just didn't see the cracks if you weren't really looking. Some of us were, and I know some of you were. I know I was. I didn't, and I know Corey was. We've talked about this. These guys, we all knew that there was a problem. There are plenty of examples that we could point to. Riley and even now Venables being handed, they've been handed the same structure, the same culture, just 5 years apart, man. Because it illustrates, I'm going to tell you why. The fact that they didn't allow him to, that Mike Stoops didn't lose his position after that Rose Bowl game was beyond me. I don't know why. Everybody was calling for him to go. Just like they had already been calling for Stoops, for Big Brother Stoops to go for a while too. We expect a little much in Oklahoma. So, but it was a prime example of the fact that Riley was never really given the keys to this Ferrari. He just wasn't. He wasn't allowed to institute his own. He either wasn't allowed to institute his own culture or wasn't given the okay to start doing so until after midway through that next season, after that Rose Bowl loss, when they're having to score 50 and they finally let him go, that he was able to even start. By this time, listen, I think it had already signaled the beginning of the end, and they weren't they were still not helping him get better. And it just, you could see it kind of coming apart. Last year, whenever they lost the Baylor game and he misses his availability on Tuesday, rumors are he was in Baton Rouge. Maybe it was L.A. It was in Baton Rouge, I'm pretty sure. And nobody really holds his feet to the fire. And I remember on Twitter people saying, oh, he's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. He was going. We knew he was going. You know why? Because when they asked him what he was, about, was he here? Was he there? Was he interviewing for jobs? He says, guys, I've said this before. I'm the head coach at the University of Oklahoma. My first thought is until you're not. Nobody there said anything to him. Turns out I was right. He left. And here's the deal. You could see it coming. And even after getting caught up in all this, hoopla BS crap that everybody, we're going to have this dream season that no other coach has ever had in the history of the game. Stoops goes 7-5 in his first season. He wins the season after that. But it took Nick Saban until year 3 at Alabama to win a national title. I think he was in year 3 or 4 at LSU when he won one there. He went 7-6, I think, something like that at his first year in Alabama. Pete Carroll didn't win in his first season. I go back to Jimmy Johnson in the U. He didn't win his first season over there. They didn't. It just doesn't happen. It takes time to extend, to be able to do it, and it takes to get broken. You needed to break it. There's plenty of other examples of why Riley and Venables were handed the same culture, and to me, right now, the narrative that's going around about that we need to change the culture that was left by Lincoln Riley, that's shit. It's bullshit. It's just a made-up word that it's a buzzword that I think it was being created by Castiglione, by possibly, probably, Bob himself, and even maybe a little bit Venables, to kind of say, hey, give us a little time here. We got to get rid of what was Lincoln Riley. The truth of it is, you need to get rid of what was Stoops, because he wasn't hacking it for a while. Okay? He wasn't. It was time for him to go. And I think that the whole culture narrative is just a buzzword that, so that you can quietly, or maybe loudly, if you're a Sooner fan on Twitter, credit the success that Lincoln had with him, with this another narrative that he was inheriting a ready-made playoff team, like he didn't build that damn thing. Because I got to tell you, those 2 years as the offensive coordinator, he's the one that did all the offensive recruiting. He's the one that got Baker to come to Oklahoma. He's the one that got Kyler to come to Oklahoma. He's later the one that got Jalen. And I mean, this is the guy he built. The only difference between what he was handed and what Venables was handed was the fact that he had helped build the team, and the retiring coach didn't, they didn't leave with him. That's the difference. But the truth be told, he was never really handed those keys. So to sit there and say that he was handed a ready-made team by Bob Stoops, you're lying to yourself, and you're letting these guys off the hook for underachieving, and this is never going to result in Oklahoma winning a national title. You have to know that. You have to know that. Okay? I'm going to leave you with two obvious reasons that it was real obvious that it was the reasons that the house of cards that was in Norman for so long avoided collapse for as long as it did. And these are the two reasons in and of themselves, okay? First off, you can thank the University of Texas themselves, okay, for being even more delusional than I've seen so many OU fans be since Lincoln left the program a year ago, okay? And over a longer period of time, too. We're talking about a 12-year fall from relevancy because they were even more delusional about what had made them successful under Mac Brown, which, come to find out, it was just Mac. And they fired him for some stupid, they had no reason for it. And since then, they've gone through coach after coach after coach. Okay? Dumb, right? And I'm surprised that, it's a good thing that Sark, for himself, that he got it together when he has and got Quinn Ewers, and I think the Arch Manning thing didn't hurt him. But I would be remiss to say, if I failed to mention the incessant underachievement of those little brother Oklahoma State Cowboys and Mike Gundy, who in 17, 18 years now have only managed to beat Oklahoma 3 times. These things are glaring reasons why the cracks in the OU facade went largely unnoticed, unless you're paying close attention. Okay? A lot of 10-2, 12-2, 10-3, 11-2 seasons. Okay? 10-2, 11-2, 12-2, 11-3, whatever. Those kind of seasons, you're going to live through that. Had Texas been what they should have been at that point, that doesn't happen probably. But again, they were even more delusional than was Oklahoma and our fan base. That we're talking about a team that, okay, and then of course you've got Stillwater, where they just, every time they need to win a big game, they don't do it. They did it again last year. They should have won the Big 12 and went to the playoff, and they choked it up like they always do. Things in Norman weren't as good as they were in Tuscaloosa, Baton Rouge, Athens, Georgia, Clemson, they weren't as good as they were there in Norman. But when you go to 4 college football playoffs, it's kind of, even if you don't have a win to show for it, it doesn't exactly scream dumpster fire in Norman the same way that losing to Kansas twice in a row does in Austin. Or the same way that Gundy being 3-14 against Oklahoma in 17 seasons does for him either. The fact that they never win a game when they need to, right? I'm going to continue to argue that Stoops, and what it amounts to is the fact that he still has so much prominent influence. That's what hampered Lincoln Riley. It eventually pushed him out the door, and it still casts a long shadow over the program right now, today. And this is a problem, folks. This is a problem. Castiglione, he hired all 3 of these guys. So he's culpable in the failures of the program. He's also largely responsible for a lot of the successes of the program. But Joe's unwillingness to really stray anywhere away from Stoops and his culture that he built at OU, which won 1 national title and lost 3 other ones. I mean, he's unwilling to do it, and so it's troubling if you're a Sooner fan and you want to see them win a national title. It's been 22 years, folks. It was true for Lincoln. It's true for Venables, but I got to say, I can't help but think that this culture that they're talking about, they continue to talk about that Venables needs to build, and they keep throwing it on Lincoln, and which is, again, stop lying to yourselves, okay? Because that's not what it is. If we're going to just rebuild the Stoops culture in Norman again, what are you going to get but Stoops results? Hey, listen, if you're okay with 11-2, 12-2, 10-3, fine. Here's the thing. If you're that good in the SEC, 10-2 and 11-2 is not going to be 10-2 and 11-2, 10-3 and 11-2. That's not what it's going to be in the SEC. It's going to be 8-4 or 9-3. That's what's going to happen. If you really want to do this, he's got to step away from the program, and Brent has got to demand it. Maybe Venables wasn't the guy for the job. Maybe he is. I like Brent Venables, and I think he can do a great job. The fact that the way that they're recruiting, it's fabulous. But recruiting isn't the whole thing, man. And it's just, again, I have a lot of respect for Bob Stoops. I have a lot of respect for Joe. But if you don't realize that the same culture that won in 2000 isn't the culture that's going to win in 2022, 23, 24, 25, then you're just missing it. And all of you folks that are letting them off the hook by forgetting how things weren't as good as they always seemed, that's part of the problem. Corey was right when he talked about it broke. We needed it to break. Now we need to be honest with ourselves about what broke it and not allow that to happen again. Build the culture new and stop. Listen, Stoops isn't the head coach anymore. Stop looking back at him, or it's going to stay broken.